because someone had the nerve to stand up and talk their language finally, they got involved. That's all it takes. Everyone, just the cops, yeah.
We've got to get involved. That is Kellyanne Wolf, who is leading the Independent Ontario 2026 race for votes, which I cannot get behind for the following reasons. Kellyanne is calling for the ratification of corporate constitutions. We have to understand there is a de jure government that is for the people, of the people, by the people, with the people. And there is a de facto government, which is the corporate side of what is well intended for the people because we are the people leading it and running it, compared to the de facto corporation government, which is basically boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes that are limiting our space and giving us perceived benefits and privileges compared to actually being able to stand as we are and claim rights. Grandpa, you didn't turn the... Hey, it's Laura J. on July 7th at 11:33 p.m. I am coming to you live because I have just listened to Kellyanne Wolf's presentation of Independent Ontario 2026. And with all love, respect, and desire to connect, I want to share why I can't get behind the project as it's being presented thus far. The desire for a ratification of a constitution is to bring us into the corporate realm, where then we are incorporated into a legal fiction. So from a multidimensional perspective, we have to see that we are multidimensional beings: body, mind, spirit, heart, soul. All 5 aspects or elements of us are what we must actually know we are entrusted to care for. Body, mind, spirit, soul, heart. This is where we actually start to take our power back from all those places that we have given it to previously. We have to see the one-dimensional reality of a label that we take on as part of our identity is the one-dimensional, this is the box that defines this, to go with this stereotype, and everything else that goes with the label that we take on with the one-dimensional reality that we take on. But above that is the two-dimensional domain in which the label reigns. So that two-dimensional reality is the corpse itself, which orates through men and women who accrue karma on behalf of the corpse they're orating for. 2 dimensions contain the one. Now, 3 dimension is form, which is what we actually are, which is why we're actually above the corporate realm if we don't get incorporated by dropping a knee to be titled or receive a status or personage or somehow alter our identity from what we are as we are to then what we're converted into with the change of a name, which changes this case number and the experience that we're going through. Because if our notes are in one briefcase and we bring another briefcase, it's not relevant, it doesn't match, we can't use it. So we're fracked within an imperfect use of fracked. That is the ability to use someone else's property without penalty, to profit off of someone else's property without any liability for doing so. And then there is the ability to abuse someone else's property, even to the point of destruction or demise, without consequence if it is property which is proper to the one who holds the title of it being a thing, as is they or them. We have to see the third person pronoun is ownable. The first person pronoun is the main character. So if we remain the character, then we can replay other people's skits, such as what you're doing with me right now. And we get to have some control over the playback speed and all the rest of it when we're in consumer mode. But ultimately, when we're consuming, we're not creating. And that's what we came here for within the 3D that has a 4D mental reality overlaid on top of the 3. And the 5 is where we actually merge the right and left hemisphere to create what the gateway process refers to as hemisync. Now, it's also about seeing the need to merge the shadow and light, to see the fight is between density of frequency. And then we start to see that whatever we put the name on it of matters less. What matters most is breathing ourselves into the moment, to actually get back to what we were talking about before we went down a side trail that took us to important territory and terrain, but not necessarily for today. So I'm reining myself back in, and I'm saying that the points that I believe could be done in a different way, and will propose what that is now, is starting number 1 with abolishing the electoral voting system and bringing democracy back to our country. My question is, what does that entail? What is democracy in its truest sense, and what was the original equivalent? Is that more powerful, and has thus usurped the use of that because it benefited whom, is the question. The second point was around the Indian Act, which I'm not sure, but did you know that a one-sided agreement actually means that any agreements made to any other status than what the one in question is doesn't apply? So all of the, benefits and privileges and contracts were awarded to Indians as the title, for instance. And then it was changed to Aboriginals and Métis and all of the different genres of Aboriginal, as to how people have come to see First Nations people. All of these names we associate with the same group of people, and yet they're all different names and titles, which can get lost in translation if you don't know to relate a title to this thing. Well, the same thing has happened with the creator of all, grand overall designer, creator, source of all the energy that is, all being the exclusion of none. So what is the all not, is the question. Well, then we get into domains versus dominion. So breathing that one into the depths of when the sin of syntax enters the equation. So the sin of syntax is actually where we started to buy the idea that we were other than we actually are in order to receive benefits and privileges awarded to those whose identity changed when the status was applied, and the act was then deemed relevant to us who got to play in it. Well, the proposal to remove Royal Statuses and Titles Act, that I suspect I could get behind, though I've not read the legislation. Though will say, for any legislation you reference compared to, beside that which you are referencing, to demonstrate, straighten out those demons, dead entities mentalizing only neurosis. Back in a moment. We're removing the Royal Statuses and Titles Act. What is replacing that, though, then, is the question. Ethics violations become a criminal offense? Yes, that's because under common law, that is uncapitalized, unhyphenated, and unspecialized, that version of the common law is unlimited. And therefore, we can draw from it any claims we wish to make against another man or woman that we can see, which is the eye that we use to see the one we ID as the one I believe caused me harm, loss, or fraud, which are the criminal versions of common law offenses when claimed properly within competent jurisdictions, without the pretense of ghosts that require hosts to foist their gnosis onto the one that must then pay the price of getting hung out to dry with the suit that was only meant to be a lie worn part-time or full-time, depending on your work schedule, as to how much of your time, energy, effort, attention, and money you're trading for that position, for that suit, for that title, for that identity, which is what we take on with the uniforms that form us into one unit of consciousness within the system that requires us shrink and play small in order to fit into the box. I don't know what NCI stands for as the Political Oversight Committee, though I do know the idea of a transparent political party with the ability to monitor thoughts and actually hold politicians accountable for acting honorably and doing what they say they're going to do and be who and what they claim to be. Those things would be useful and people would then have more faith in the governmental system. But the question then is, which one are we talking about? Because the de facto government is essentially the corporate government that just has boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes. So I only really went to the fifth dimension, which is where we get the competing noise between the not now and the now. So then we have to really understand that all of it's happening right now because this is where our power is. And if we don't solve something the first time, we'll have to resolve it in the now with the momentum of not having dealt with it before. Pay up front and play for the rest, or as long as you would like to or wish to, or play up front and then pay the interest with compounded interest, which is 1144. So declare WEF a criminal organization, that it is. However, when you go after an entity, you have to recognize the threat of mental health diagnoses. If you are too grandiose and don't know how to decline being made surety for your person. We also have to make sure that our hospitals are not death camps as well, and that good men and women are not accruing karma by working on behalf of a corpse they feel indebted to because that's how they pay for their lifestyle. We have to see there is a criminal organization and crime ring at play right now, except for there's a legalized and normalized version of it that is literally breaking spirits purposefully. And we can't afford to allow this to continue the way that it has been, because ultimately these entities require hosts for their gnosis, which is a death cult. The culture you are part of is the cult you are gaining influence and identity from, as to then how you interact with the rest of the world beyond your inner circle, your inner sphere. Well, it is time to see that the WEF, for instance, is made up of men and women who are in the positions that are running each of the parts of the machine. So when you actually go for the men and women that are working inside of the machine in their private capacity, because even though they don that suit when they go in to work and call themselves such and such while they're doing such and such a position, they still are acting of their own conscience to go in there and do that if they know there is fraud at play, and there certainly is right now. So my idea early on was to reduce the notion of plausible deniability by simply putting everyone on notice publicly all at once, which is yet to happen unless we consider this to be the public notice. If you get to see this message, then you will know that we are coming after the men and women who are filling corporate positions, that are moving forward a corporate agenda that would consume all of us just piecemeal, like Martin de Moliere's poem, First They Came. First they came for these ones, but I wasn't one, so I let them go. And then they came for those ones, and I wasn't one of them, so I let them go. And then they came for the neighbors, and I didn't like it because it was closer to home and I felt more uncomfortable and more vulnerable and more unsafe, but I certainly didn't want to upset those soldiers that seemed so cruel and fixated on completing their task. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up because everyone else had already been taken away and I was weak alone. So it's time. It is time for us to see that everything we have been through has been preparing us for this moment. It is time. No one expected us to do what we're going to do. No one expected us to do it except for us, subconsciously, unconsciously, hoping, wishing we could get it together. Well, we just needed a common project. I appreciate, Kellyanne, your efforts to ratify the Constitution, but I do believe we need to focus on the internal Constitution first. What are we made of? How do we bring the fruits of the Spirit back without needing to bring the book that was written on baby skins as papal bulls in the first place? How do we bring back the principles and tenets of the values and virtues at the foundation of all of the traditions, not just one? We want to expand what is possible, not contract it, to make sure the word or the title on the term and the meaning we associate with it are the same when all includes all things, except for the word includes itself is a trick word because it's a one-sided agreement. So when you include something, it's the exclusion of everything not mentioned. Isn't that insane? Legalese is literally a language that is used to deceive the common people to believe they're seeing one thing, when the truth is that those same words have a different meaning within the certain system that is de facto, because it's all designed to make us believe that we are employees or the equivalent working for the corporation that is actually in place because we gave it our power. We empowered the government. So the government officials have the opportunity to make money that then is used to bring harm to their own communities because they're not looking after their own because they're too busy working for the corpse. So the death cult moves forward and pushes its agenda forward while life takes a pause and is given a chance to regroup and say, no, we will not be duped any longer than we already have been. That's enough. 21:12 it was when I said that. It is time, frontwards, backwards. It's time to align. So with that, you will find that I have another concept in mind I would love to run by you to help expand what you are trying to do, but do it in a way that empowers us instead of just causes us to give our power to a different corporate entity, which is still an entity, which is a thought form that accrues energy because we give it ours. compared to when we remain the main character within our own scripts and use the first person pronouns me, mine, I, we, us, ours, in order to describe and define that which we share equally compared to them who is separate. You see? So 22222, lots of twos just for you. 1152. So with that, I will bid you adieu and say I really look forward to sharing what I propose comes from this, because I don't want to just shoot down the ideas. I want to really get some good feedback from others before I share a full rebuttal, unless the rebuttal can be handled, answered, spoke to, challenged. If it can be challenged and it can be spoke to without the defensiveness, then that is golden. Learning to challenge without offending. Yeah, without taking offense too. Oh man. We got some big times ahead of us. My God. My God.